Let's go to the next question. This is number 11. Evan Findley says, where were the Nazis as a government authority appointed by God according to Romans 13? Well, Romans 13 is pretty broad, right? Like what it actually says. Let's look at it. Let every person be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God. Okay, that's a broad sweep. This isn't about specific authorities. It's not like there's no U.S. It's rather there's no such thing as authority except from God. All authority comes back to God ultimately. Without God, nobody has a rightful claim to authority. Here's an interesting philosophical thing, right? Where you go, hey, if there is no God, why does anybody have any right to claim authority over anyone? But if there's a God, then that authority can trickle down from him through his authority. And those that exist, second claim, have been instituted by God. I think the idea here is that the governments that do exist, whatever happens to exist, including the horrible regimes that have existed in the past, they were instituted by God. Where I think we make a mistake, though, is we think that means whatever they do is approved by God, and that is absolutely unbiblical. Like I could spend a week giving you all the scriptures of all the governments doing things God hates and tells them not to do, and even judges them for doing, rebukes them for doing. And there's even times in scripture where, yes, the general rule, the normal rule is don't resist the authorities, right? And specifically, it's because what? They're supposed to be there to punish bad and reward good. Specifically to punish bad, actually, is the main thing. So yeah, that's there. I don't want to violate the government in its rightful roles. But are there times where a person can go against the government? Yes, there are times. And we have examples of this. Like, look at the judges of Israel. Like you have Ehud, who's one of the judges of Israel, who, all the guys like this story, right? Because it's gory. And it has Ehud who goes and sneaks up to King Eglon, I believe his name is, who's the king of, was it the Moabites? Whoever was oppressing Israel at the time. And Eglon is this super fat king. He's just like super, super big. I mean, the Bible talks about him as being this really, really, really incredibly overweight person. And Ehud goes up to him, and he has a knife hidden on his person. He goes up, he pulls the knife off, and he stabs Eglon in the gut. And the knife goes in and doesn't come out. And sorry for the visual, but this is just thinking biblically about King Eglon's gut here. But his guts come spilling out, which is actually an understandable exchange physically for that to happen, crazy as that sounds. So that's an assassination of a government ruler. So if we were to take this Romans passage and think, you can never, ever resist any government under any conditions, we would have to say that things like in the book of Judges, Ehud killing Eglon, which is seen as a heroic act, as an act that stirs the people and then they cast off this other government that's oppressing them, that was actually a bad thing. I think this is not the case, because while this is the general rule, there are exceptions, but you have to have good reason to have an exception, because the general rule is that you need to obey them. An example for this could be parents. Think of it simplistically here. Obey your parents is the general rule. But what if your parents are asking you to go out and murder and steal and do horrible things and spray paint monkeys on your neighbor's cars? Like, well, obviously you don't then, so there are situations where you don't. I'm not the guru for all those situations. I think life is complicated, and some of these moral challenges get very hard. So the general rule is there, and that's what we mostly have to observe. So the Nazis they were appointed by God, but it may well have been right to fight them because of the way they were abusing their powers. Life is complicated.